The thing that people don't see that when you're on Shark Tank is that
What's been the best pitch you've had so far? Working with Robert, I think that would have been probably one of the coolest things as well on the show. What were some of the biggest learnings you learned as an investor and a business owner?
Yeah, he's definitely like a seasoned pro. The thing that, I really observed from him is
Today's guest is the founder of the Australia's #1 agency here, King Kong. Him and his team have helped his clients do $7.8 billion of sales through products and services for all of their clients, to now the best-selling author of Sell Like Crazy, and is actually one of the sharks on the recent season of Shark Tank here in Australia. So please help me welcome to the show, my man, Mr. Sabri Suby.
Don't ask me why. There are a lot of stupid people out there that run businesses. And I said to the entrepreneur, I'm going to ask you a question now, and I want you to think long and hard about the answer. And the question that I asked them was,
Hello, Dream Nation. Welcome back. And guys, before we get into this episode, I just want to say something. Look, I always wish that I learned about personal development, business, entrepreneurship, and emotional intelligence way earlier on in life, and I'm sure you did as well. And my goal with this channel is to turn it into that thing that we all wish we had when we were growing up. And it goes such a long way if you guys subscribe to this wherever you are listening to this or viewing it, because the bigger the show gets, the better the guests we can get that come on the show as well. And the better the guests we get, the better the content also gets for you. So if you could just take 2 seconds right now and subscribe to wherever you are, it would mean the freaking world to me. Let's get into it. Alrighty guys, welcome back to the Dream Out Loud podcast. Today's guest is the founder of the Australia's #1 agency here, King Kong. Him and his team have helped his clients do $7.8 billion of sales through products and services for all of their clients. He's come from very humble beginnings, busking on the streets of Byron Bay at 7 years old with a harmonica, to now the best-selling author of Sell Like Crazy, and is actually one of the sharks on the recent season of Shark Tank here in Australia. So please help me welcome to the show, my man, my friend, the internet daddy, Mr. Sabri Suby.
thanks for having me on.
Mate, very excited to have a conversation with you, talk all things business, Shark Tank, all these sorts of things. But when I was sort of looking at putting together everything, one of the things that really stood out most for me was hearing a bit of your story. So you started King Kong, #1 agency here in Australia. You've done $7.8 billion sales for your clients. It's been going for nearly a decade now. Yep. You started this from your freaking bedroom, cold calling hundreds of people a day. Looking back on all the success you've had so far with it, if you were to narrow it down to just one thing, even though it would be so many things that would have come together to really make this what it is, if you were to put it down to just one thing that you would say this was the most pivotal thing that created most success for it, what would it be?
Focus. Yeah, focus without a doubt. I think that there's so many shiny objects in business and in life in general. And if you can delay gratification and extend your time horizons and focus on anything and just focus on becoming the absolute best in the world at that thing over a long period of time, and block out all the noise, put the blinders on, and just focus on that thing repeatedly for a long period of time, you end up being successful. People have built the biggest businesses doing the weirdest shit possible and selling flour and water and making donuts and building billion-dollar businesses. It all just comes down to just absolute ruthless focus on the thing that is the main thing, because we all have the same 24 hours in a day. And I know that if it wasn't this and if it was something else, that is the same superpower that I would want to take with me, is having the ability to focus on something and think longer with bigger time horizons.
Do you think that's one of the things that most entrepreneurs struggle with now?
I do. It's definitely what I struggled on as a lot. In my early years of being an entrepreneur, I had run many businesses, I'd run many into the ground, and I was always just distracted by this shiny object, whether it was a funnel or a new business model or, some ad strategy or whatnot, and always thinking that that was the answer. And it's never the answer. Right? It's always typically about the fundamentals. It's not the sexiest thing, but that is the thing that moves the needle long term. And it's what I see in business owners that are just starting out, and they're thinking is it e-com, or is it an agency, or do I want to start a podcast, or should I start a blog, or whatever it might be. There's always people looking at other vehicles other than the one that they're in to be the one. Or If you join like business masterminds, it's basically just business owners sitting around like circle jerking over other people's businesses around like, oh, that looks like your business looks easier to run than my business. My business has got all these problems. You know, your business sounds so much more easier to scale and you don't have all these problems, right? And it's just all people looking at outside the vehicle that they're currently in. Where if they just really dedicated themselves and said like, I am just going to bury myself and I'm going to focus on this thing continuously, keep on getting feedback, keep getting reps in until I am literally one of the best in the world at this. And whatever sector or industry or niche that you operate in, if you do that, the chances are that you can create an incredible business and life for yourself.
One thing I heard Ty Lopez saying one time was, he's like, any road will get you there, yes. But if you start walking, say, north, you can walk the entire way around the globe and eventually get back to where you need to be. But if you had just had the guidance to actually do the 180 and turn south, you would have got there a lot sooner. So in your opinion, how does someone actually determine what is the right thing for them to focus on? How do we determine, is this another shiny object, or is this the universe saying, guiding me this way? Or because in this day and age, there is so many things that are new opportunities or easier to do it, or you know what I mean? So how does one actually determine what is the right thing that they should be focusing on?
Yeah, and look, that's a cool analogy, right? And especially for someone that like wants to pedal courses, right? The fact that you could basically take 2 steps south and arrive at the destination. But like if you just zoom out and you look at anybody that's successful and you look at the journey that they have gone through and the path and the fires that they've had to cross to get to where they are, there's always one commonality with all those people. Like they have gone through lots of failures, incredible hardship, to then arrive at the destination. And what appears on the surface looks like it's an overnight success has been like people working intensely in private for many, many hours. Does it help to get a roadmap and to get places quicker? Without a doubt, definitely is required. Like the best thing to do is definitely to learn from people that have already made the down payment on those successful things. But it doesn't remove the thing that there is still going to be, even if you know where the roadmap is, no one is going to do that work for you. You still have to get multiple reps in. Just because somebody shows you where the destination is doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to be a lot quicker or easier to get there. Right? So I think that's like the important distinction to make is this like understanding that no matter what path that you go down, there is no shortcuts. Like the only shortcut to success is just to become somebody that is worthy of success. And the only way to become somebody that is worthy of success is to literally pay the dues and to get the reps in, right? So like that's just the most important distinction to make. Like it's not meant to be easy.
Yeah, that's why it's so rewarding, right? I think I heard controversial person, but Andrew Tate say one time, he's like, the reason why a 6-pack on a guy or a perfect booty on a girl is so attractive is because we all know, we can look at that and be like, fuck, that was hard to attain. But if every single one of us had a 6-pack, or if every single girl had a perfect booty, it eventually wouldn't actually be like that pedestal. It wouldn't be like, oh, that's so great. So if success was so simple to have, it probably wouldn't even, the whole reason why we want to attain success or have this business, this lifestyle.
Yeah, like look at it back, like since the dawn of time. It's like when people were like collecting rubies and diamonds, and the whole reason that those things hold value is because they're scarce. So things that are in abundance are not valued, right? They become commodities, and we all know what happens to commodities. Like the prices just go down, because it literally is by definition a commodity. So yeah, like you are always going to strive for things that are very difficult to attain. And that's what makes the journey worthwhile, right? Is that constantly leveling up of what it is that you need to do to attain that. Where it's like, if there was no leveling up that was needed and that you could get it, then we simply would not value it.
Yeah. You did 150 cold calls in the beginning from your bedroom, which I can imagine sitting in Ugg boots doing it. But what I'm curious to know is 100, like I've never done cold calls really like that. I don't think, definitely not on like that scale. And I don't think I'd be too excited to start either, because I could really imagine the mental battle of that. Like the days when you have no evidence that this business is even a thing yet, you're trying to create something from nothing. You're sitting at your home. You've got no evidence that it's been proven yet. How did you mentally get through 150 phone calls cold calls every single day, I'm assuming the majority of them are either just hung up on you, abusive, or just a no. So I'm assuming there's just so much setback again and again and again. How did you actually, like, what drove you in those times?
Yeah, and 150 cold calls is like, that's what I call working part-time, right? So that's not like I had to do everything else in running my business, plus also make 150 cold calls. So like I've worked in places where I was making 600 cold calls a day on an auto dialer. And yes, the vast majorities of them are hang-ups. They are, voicemails. There are just people just cursing at you and abusing you, right? That's just the reality of it. And it was difficult. Like when I started King Kong, I had already sold a business. I had run a business into the ground. I had, started up a few e-commerce businesses. I started a group buying website with the AFL. I'd done a whole bunch of stuff, right? And I basically found myself back at square one with no money in my bank account. And I went back on my roots. I got my start in sales when I was 16 years old, selling ink cartridges over the telephone. And it's like, you're either going to start like a business out of motivation or desperation, right? And for me, it was definitely the latter, right? I was not thinking of this big grand, let me create this like world-class digital marketing agency and like become the number one customer acquisition expert on planet Earth or any of those kind of things. I was just thinking about, how do I not be broke? Like, how do I put money on the table, put food on the table, I should say, to speak, and money in the bank account? And so that pain of not having any money and not wanting to be a failure is the thing that drove me much more than me wanting to be successful at that moment when I started the business. And for me, I just had to have a real conversation with myself of like, yo, what are you doing? I just recently gotten married, and I was like, your wife is just committed to spend the rest of your life with you. Like, you need to stop fucking around with all of these shiny object syndromes and all these different businesses, and you just need to knuckle down and you need to do this thing. And so I had to first have that conversation with myself and get sold on myself and being like, you're going to basically go underwater, put your head down and not come up for 3 years. You're not going to, like, you've created this hypothesis. Now you're going to execute on this violently for 36 months and you're not going to question anything. And I'll never forget, I woke up in the morning, it was 4 a.m, it was a cold morning, went for a run, came back, got on the telephones at 8:30 and did a whole day of calling, and it was like, this was brutal. This is a lot harder than I remembered it being.
Is it because it's your own thing now you're selling?
No, it's just I hadn't done it in a while. Right, I hadn't done cold calls in a while, and it was just a different climate. And it's like anything. It's like you don't go to the gym for a year and go back to the gym. You're like, fuck.
You don't lose, you use, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, what you don't use, you lose.
Yeah, and so that was definitely the case. And it was like 3 days. It was rough. Then I got my first client, and I was like, okay. And then it's just that it's always that internal dialogue with yourself. It doesn't matter. Like whether it's cold calling or it's hiring people or it's building a business or it's doing anything, there's always that duality of man. There is always that internal dialogue where it's the person that I call the little bitch that lives in your head, right? That is always pulling at your heels. Is always trying to like tell you, no, you shouldn't be doing this. You shouldn't be acting like this. Something bad's going to happen. Why don't you just not go to the gym today? Don't make another sales call. And it doesn't stop. Like that person always occupies real estate in your mind, and you just need to flex the muscle and get in more control of being able to wrestle that little bitch out.
I love that. And it's so funny. Like, I don't know if you've noticed this, but like back when I first started my journey building businesses and stuff, the little bitch, the imposter, I call mine Freddie, like Freddie Mercury. It's a story to that one, but it was little things like, are you sure? Like, the really obvious things, like what are people going to think, or da 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 da. But you're too young for this, because I started building my business at 21. So a big thing for me in the beginning was, but you're too young, and all these sorts of things. I overcame all these things, and then it's like the voice gets more intelligent, doesn't it? It's like because it's like that shit doesn't even work anymore. And I noticed it really strong. I've had my podcast now for about 3.5 years, and it was probably about 5 years ago I had the idea to do a podcast. I was in America. I'm like, I'm gonna do a podcast this year, and the voice was, okay, Morgan, if you do one, you got to do well at it, but are you sure you have the bandwidth right now? And it's like, but you don't have the energy for it right now, or the capital to invest into it. And I was like, yeah, you're right. That's so true. It makes so much sense. And I delayed it for about a year. until one day I realized, like, hang on, that's the fucking voice again. It's just become a lot more intelligent now, and it gets a lot more intelligent of justifying to me that things actually do make sense. So it's no longer things like, oh, but no one's going to listen to your show. Because I knew that was, of course, if I create a good show, people get to listen. That wasn't that anymore. But it was, are you sure you can just manage it right now? So how do you continually intercept the little bitch? And does yours get more and more and more intelligent? How do you intercept it and actually deal with that on a day-to-day basis now?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, and you're right, it does. It's like an algorithm that gets calibrated and optimizes over time. Yeah. And the things that people don't realize is that like they have mind viruses that they carry around with them that they catch from other people, right? So like that little bitch that is in your head, Freddie, right? Like if Freddie's gotten fed from other people's information, and it's like that has you've listened to a podcast, you've watched some piece of content, and it's basically said somewhere along the lines of that, right? Like you can't spread your time too thin, like you can't do this, you've just got to you can't do this because it's such a resource and it's such a resource drain. And then you're like, okay, cool. And then it gets smarter and calibrates. So the way that I have found to calibrate that is, one, to first be aware that a lot of these beliefs that you have, that you're carrying around with yourself, that the little bitch kind of whispers into your ear, is they're other people's limiting beliefs. And they're all the validations to those people why they've given up on their dreams or why they say they can't do this, right? And it's the same people that say like you can't have it all, and you can't have a good relationship, and you can't have your business, and you can't have, a good relationship with your children and be in great shape and all of those things. It's just people that have given up on that, right? You'll never hear somebody say that has all those things. Yeah. So then you don't want to be listening to those people. For me, my relationship with my little bitch is that like whenever it rears its head, I let it know that it's the master. That I am the master, I should say. So if I wake up in the morning and it's like, hey, it's raining today, Sabri. Like you're sore, you tweaked your shoulder and you should just rest. You've already gotten in, 3 workouts this week. Just go back to sleep, right? Just rest. You don't need to do it. You don't even know where your gym gear is. Just rest, right? And so whenever you just have to be very attuned of like catching that is happening, and that everyone hears it. It happens every day. Just have one more bite of that. Just go have a piece of chocolate, do this. And I just like starve that little bitch. Then I'm like, okay, cool. You told me not to go to the gym. Well, guess what? I'm going to the gym today, and we're going to end the session with 10 minutes of high intensity hill sprints. Or I'm going to do an extra set of deadlifts, or I'm going to do this just to show you that when you rear your head, there is consequences for doing so. And it's like, you just don't want to start your day off with a lie, right? If you say that you're going to do something to yourself, you better do that thing. Otherwise, don't even do it. So for me, once I say that I'm going to do something, it's done. No matter what, I've already committed to doing it. And I do not allow myself to go back on my word to myself, because if I'm willing to lie to myself, right? How am I going to treat other people in my life?
And I love this because like the work that I'm in, the amount of people I've worked with, and I see them not going after the things they want or adapting to their full potential, comes mostly back to like I've all the work I've done in personal development, mindset, psychology, and all this stuff. If I was to write like a 1-page book that could just be left here on the world to make the most difference, it would teach people how they can actually increase their self-esteem and their self-belief. Because I think that's the underlying issue of all success, health, relationships, everything. We'll ask for in life whatever we think we're worthy of. But what you're just saying there is the thing that actually builds our self-worth. A lot of people say they gotta do things and then don't do it. Or they wake up, oh, it's raining, I'm not gonna do it. And it creates this, it crushes the self-esteem. Like Alex Hormozi even talked about this, going, stop looking for self-belief, just look for evidence, like collect evidence in your life to prove to you over and over and over that you're a person that does the things they said they were going to do. And I think like definitely in the last like 6 or 12 months, I can see a big jump in myself of like just the compound effect of, yeah, I've just done so many things I don't want to do. That's why I know when I set big goals, I know I'm going to do them, because that's just who I am. I just do the things that I set. So I think it's really big. But I want to go back to the cold calls. What was your opening line? 150, surely you've probably dialed in. How do you get someone's attention?
Yeah, so basically what I was doing is I was calling businesses that were running Google Ads and I was selling them SEO, right? So I was just very, very focused, just as a digital agency selling one service, nothing else. It doesn't matter. If they asked for something else, I couldn't sell them something else, right? And I'd basically just call them up and just say, hey, I need to speak to the person who's in charge of the Google Ads account, right? And then the first thing they'd tell me is like, oh, like we're completely sorted. And I'm like, no, I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm calling up about your existing Google Ads account.
You were.
I was, right? But I wasn't right then, right? I was simply going to do a diagnosis on their ads and show them all the opportunity they're leaving out by not being ranked up into the organic listings. So it's not that I was lying. I wasn't physically selling them something on the telephone there. But naturally, these people are very trained, right? They get lots of cold calls every day. There's lots of people calling them from all over the world. So typically, that's the hook that I would go in there with. You're not going to be speaking to the person that looks after that straight out of the gate. So it's not like the receptionist that you're speaking to, you have to deliver some like really crazy hook and outlandish promise to get them to listen to it. If you do that, you're actually not going to get through the gatekeeper, because that's the first sell that's made on any cold call, is how do I actually get around the gatekeeper? And the more that you sound like a salesperson, the less that you're going to get through. And how do salespeople sound? They upward inflect after everything they say. So they end a sentence with talking up. Yeah. Hi, I was just after the person who looks after the Google Ads account. Yeah. Oh, salesperson trying to sell me some shit. Bye, right? So then what you want to do is you want to downward inflect. Right? And you want to be like, yeah, hi, I just need to speak to the person who's in charge of the Google Ads account. Sounds like I'm in trouble. There's something going on.
Very authoritative.
Yeah. And so that's what it is that works, right? It doesn't work to have some crazy opening line of stuff. And I know because I've done this. Like, I've done it not only, like, you think 150 cold calls per day. Like, I've calculated it out. I've made over 1 million cold calls in my career. I started when I was 16. I've been on auto dialers. I've sold everything that you can imagine over the telephone, one-to-one, door-to-door, you name it, I've literally sold it. And so I learned the hard way. I was always the worst salesperson when I began, and I sucked so badly, and it was only from sucking so badly and feeling that pain and iterating over so many times. And people, you just drop me in any country, put me on an auto dialer, and I'd figure out my way to ultimately get to the outcome that it was making a sale. But yeah, you learn a lot about human psychology.
Well, that makes a lot of sense, because like 5% of our communication is language. So if I was to get into phone sales, I would probably focus on, because you just mentioned tonality, which is about 38% of our communication is tonality alone, which is probably that and language the only thing you're working with on a phone call. Are there any other things tone-wise? I know Jordan Belfort talks a lot about the tonality and all this stuff. Are there any other sort of things you found works when it comes to really sort of influencing someone over just telephone?
Look, a sales call is simply a transfer of energy, right? And you can't transfer something that you don't have within yourself. So like one of the things that I always found when I was doing sales is like, an hour on the phones is not an hour on the phones, because like I always negotiated places where it's like I worked in a sales floor, and like the target was 2 sales a day, and I became their top seller there, and I remained the top seller there for every month that I worked there. And I negotiated with my manager, okay, the target is 2. If I hit 5 per day, then I basically have 2 options, right? One is you're going to pay me double the commission, because it wasn't a sliding scale commission, and it was capped, right? Where I would reach that cap quicker, or I get to go home paid for the rest of the day. Because it wasn't an environment where, I could just keep on working more and making more. Don't ask me why. There are a lot of stupid people out there that run businesses that have cap commissions. They had that. And so I would make 5 sales by lunchtime, and I would get sent home for the day. So it was all about like the amount of energy that you put in to those hours that you're dialing. And for me, it's call it like an hour of power, where I get into like peak state, lots of energy. I do push-ups or, some body weight squats, get myself into state, and then just run, right? Just hit the calls, and because people can feel that, like they can feel that conviction. It's like it comes across with your body language, how you sit on the telephone, if you're low energy, that all comes through with your tonality and the depth of conviction that you have on a call, right? So for me, that was just the lens that I looked at for. I knew that either I put level 10 energy into an hour on the telephones, that would be equivalent to most people's 8 hours. And my numbers showed that as well. So it's really just about being completely dialed in, being in peak state, and then letting that energy transfer through the phone call to the prospect that you're speaking to.
I love it. I want to talk about Shark Tank because I've actually been watching it. That's the only TV I watch. I actually had to, I don't even know how to work a TV, so I had to get online. How do I watch Shark Tank? Because I always find it super interesting. So what's been the best pitch you've had so far?
I think probably the best pitch was a company on there called Contour Cubes that was selling a ice facial. And the thing that they did really well was explain the problem, agitate the problem, talk about the solution that was available in the market and all the flaws in there, and then revealed why they had a better solution to that, like a better mousetrap, basically. And then they just sprinkled on like social proof after social proof. They had the Kardashians that are using it. They showed the whole story, how they started it in their bedroom and they've exploded it and they've gotten 200 million views on TikTok. The thing that people don't see that when you're on Shark Tank is that like they're like 14-hour days.
I was going to say, so that pitch is cut down to 4 minutes or something.
Correct.
How long is that in the studio?
Yeah, the longest one was 2 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, and then they cut them down to 4 to 6 minutes. And on average, they're probably about 45 minutes a pitch. So, but what you don't see is that like we shot for 2 weeks, 14-hour days, 12 to 14-hour days. And you're seeing, 7 to 9 pitches a day, and you're sitting there and it's just pitch after pitch after pitch. You have to come in and make like a big, bold promise and capture everybody's attention. And it has to be compelling, right? Because otherwise, if you catch us before lunch or after lunch or just being aware of like where you are in the day and what we would be subjected to, and then making that present in your story. And regardless of like how astute of an investor that you are, right? Of course we look at the numbers. Of course we look all of those, right? But we first get sold through emotion and then we justify it through logic. So if there isn't a compelling story, if it's just boring as crap and like they're not good at communicating, it's like you're not going to even get us to the point of the numbers.
So what's been one of the worst ones without calling any of them out? Have you got an example of like, here's how you just completely fuck it up?
Oh my God, there was some complete doozies. I don't want to name and shame a few, but in terms of like categories, there was some like products that were aimed at teachers. Then there was like an app-based one as well. And one of the sins that unfortunately people commit is like sometimes that they can just be irrationally passionate in what about their business is. And they kind of don't ever stop and try to put themselves in the shoes of an investor. And they just think about how wildly passionate that they are. And they've probably been told, hey, you got to have passion, which is true, right? But it's got to be guided passion. Like you got to be targeted towards the outcome and thinking about the person on the other end that is receiving that pitch. And they'll come in, they'll get their evaluation wrong. And it's just like, but I'm just so passionate about this thing. And that blind passion gets in the whole journey of it all.
Yeah. That's one thing I've seen. I've seen a lot of people come in like, we've just started our company. We've made 3 bars of soap. I told my mum about it and my company's valued at $1 million. Do you find have people come into the show they just make up their own valuation? Because I thought you kind of value a company. Well, firstly, you'd get a professional to do it, but then secondly, if you're going to roughly do it, isn't it about 2 to 2.5x your revenue of the past year? Isn't that roughly how you value a company?
No, so like there's different multiples based on different industry sectors. If it's, if they've got a subscription business, it's a recurring revenue. And then it's basically a multiple of EBITDA, right? It's typically how it works. And it all is all dependent on like the category. Is there a moat around the business? How defensible is it that they've got it? And how, much can you rest on last year's sales to predict future sales. So if you're like an e-commerce business, like it doesn't really matter how much revenue that they've typically done as a multiple, because that's looked at as like past revenue, right? And it's more so looking at what EBITDA did they produce? EBITDA is basically how much profit you make. It's just a fancy way of saying how much profit, and then you're just getting a multiple of that. So it was actually the other way. It's a double-edged sword. On one edge, you have people that are just coming up with the most like outrageous like multiples, and it's not because they haven't consulted a professional. Like most of these people consult like a lawyer, or like their accountant, or like somebody that's not in charge of buying and selling businesses. And they're like, we think this is a fair price. And the problem is, like, the rules of the Shark Tank is that you have to get the money that you're asking for. That's the only rule. You have to get the amount of money that you ask for. The equity stake is negotiable, but the amount of money isn't. So what that means is...
It's like a contract on you guys?
That's the rules of the tank. So if you come in asking for $100,000 for 10% of the business, no matter what that percentage of what you get of that business is, they have to get 100K. So where this comes in to shoot people in the foot is that if they have asked for $100,000 on an insane multiple, it might work out that you need 60% of that person's business in order to make that ask make sense from a business valuation standpoint. And then they get caught into this conundrum and this bind. They're like, well, I don't want to give up 60% of my business. And then you're like, well, if you just came in here asking for less money, then I wouldn't have to take 60%.
So they can't backpedal and say, actually, I'll take 50.
No, they can't. That's the rules. And they can backpedal and say, I'm willing to give you 50% of the business or 20% or the 30% of the business, but the monetary amount doesn't change and can't change.
So you definitely got to know your shit before going in.
Yeah, you got to, it's a huge platform.
Yeah.
And like I get so much inbound, so many people wanting me to invest in their businesses, and they don't even see the light of day, right? Like there's so much barriers to get to me that I can't possibly look at all of the inbound that I get. I'd spend my whole day doing that.
Yeah.
So when you're on the Shark Tank and you've actually made it in there, you've gone through multiple rounds with producers and them looking at your numbers, and like there's so much that goes into this opportunity to get on this platform and to get in front of us. And like people I think discount like how much preparation that you need to put into given the opportunity that you have, because depending on what the sector is, what the business is, like you're standing in front of people that literally have the potential to change your life, right? They can make a few calls, make a few connections, help you move this dial a little bit and just change the whole trajectory of your business and your life. And you can't discount that. You've got to put in the time and preparation that's required, and a lot of businesses do.
Yeah. So for the people watching this right now and they're like, they want to go to investors to get people to invest in their business. And let's say if they are thinking about coming on Shark Tank next season or whatever, where should they have their business at? What should they be looking to have prepared already before they actually come and have a conversation that they can probably only get one time?
First thing is to know your numbers, right? That just goes without saying, right? You can't tell the story or show people where it is that you're going or reduce the risk inside the eyes of an investor without showing us the numbers.
So specific numbers,
So in terms of like the key numbers to really know what I'm looking for is what is the LTV, the lifetime value of a customer, right? What is your customer acquisition cost, right, to get them? And what is your gross profit margin and your net profit margin? With those kind of 4 metrics, I can really dial in and see like where they're at, what's going on, and what the opportunity is to kind of scale the business.
What's up, Dream Nation? Have you ever wondered how far ahead your life would have already been if you had got access to this type of content at a younger age? Look, this is why I need your help. I'm trying to build the #1 personal development platform out there to teach you guys the tips, tricks, and attitude of what it takes to live your dream life, and to bring the type of education that we all wish we had in school. This show only grows by word of mouth and new subscribers, so it would mean the world to me if you could smash that subscribe button right now, leave us a 5-star written review, or drop a comment below and share this episode with a friend. I would be forever grateful. All right, now let's get back into this episode. So the numbers is the most important thing.
That's like the foundation, even just to have an educated conversation about investing, right? And then you can't just have great numbers. Like you also have to have a great story, right? And you have to sell the vision of your business and the story and all the problems that it is that you've come. If someone comes in and all their numbers are great and they've never had any problems, I'm like, red flag, right? The reason for that is like, I'm looking to like bet on the jockey, not the horse. So I want someone as an entrepreneur that has scar tissue, that has proven ability to show that they can face adversity and they can figure out the problem and they can come up with a solution and they can run through walls to get to that outcome. Because if everything has been fine and dandy up until this point, well, guess what? There is some thunderstorms on the horizon. And I don't know how you react in that. I don't know if you wail, throw your hands up in the air and freak out and look for another business or look for an easy way out. But somebody that's proven that they have that grit and they have that tenacity and they're not making excuses as a lack of resources to why they are in this position, right? But they can show you how they've been resourceful and how they've overcome adversity to be in the position where they are standing in front of you. That's what it is that I want to hear. I'm looking for character, and I'm looking for people that, yes, have some runs on the board. They've proven that they've got product market fit. They're selling it. They're selling it on one channel and it's working. And I can come in and pour gasoline on the fire. But it's more so in, running a business, it's like you're a professional fireman, like you're a firefighter. There is always issues that are going to be happening, whether it's on the customer acquisition side, team building, like the list goes on and on and on. Like there's always going to be problems, and it's really your ability to come up with solutions to those problems. So knowing your numbers, right? And telling a compelling story and showing that you have what it takes to go through all these problems, and that you're not just going to be like this person that's going to try to come and just bring problems to the investor and expect them to solve them.
Which of your investments are you most excited about?
It's like picking children.
I
can't really say that. I'll just say that there's definitely some ones that show like a lot of promise, and we've had a fortunate group of really, really switched on operators. I didn't have super high expectations, to be honest, coming into it about like the ecosystem in Australia and like how far along a lot of these businesses would be. And we got through like the first couple of days, and I remember like, us sharks were talking and we're like, it feels like that they've just like front loaded all the good ones. Like I'm pretty surprised. Like these businesses have got a lot of traction. Like these guys are like real deal entrepreneurs. And then we were expecting to like week 2 of filming to like quiet down and not to be as good, but it was just like, it was banger after banger. There was some really good businesses. There was absolutely some doozies on there that were clearly on there for television.
So you think that the producers would probably pick people? Do you think that would just
definitely? It's television, right? It's got to be a bit of drama. It's got to be entertaining. But yeah, I was definitely overall very impressed of like the caliber and the ecosystem that we're seeing here.
Yeah. Is there any like regrets you have on the show? Like, is there any like you wish like missed opportunities, you lost it to someone else, or that you just didn't get what you wanted that you really wanted?
Yeah, there was definitely some ones that, like, in hindsight, there was one that didn't make it to air.
Oh.
And it was like, it got down to the very, very end, right? And I said to the entrepreneur, I was like, I'm going to ask you a question now, and I want you to think long and hard about the answer. Don't rush it, because your answer is going to determine whether or not I make you an offer. And the question that I asked them was, I give you the money today. What is our 3-year plan to get to this target that you're saying that we can get to? And the answer were all the wrong things. It was all about not doing more of what we're currently doing that got us to the place that we are right now.
Changing things.
But changing things up, adding a lot of complexity, and them not knowing the numbers. It was a franchise business. It was in the food space. And them not knowing like the specific cost. They had 3 locations. And them not having clear numbers of like, this is how much it's going to cost me to open up location 4, location 5. This is what the gross profit like contributions going to be from these centers, because we're going to use a centralized fulfillment, and then we're just going to have these other retail stores, and them not knowing those specific things and not seeing that they had done that work, that was just like, I'm not going to sleep easy, like, you know, writing you a 500K check, knowing that you haven't even done that preparation to know that thing, to being like, this is the only thing that's holding me back, is that I just need this capital and someone to like confirm that I'm on the right path and get there. They hadn't even done that work. So that was one that I still am in two minds of. I think that it's an incredible business. It had an incredible product, but unfortunately they weren't able to give me the answer.
Yeah. It's such a hard thing because as I've been watching the show and I try to put myself in your guys' shoes, but then it's also very hard. You guys have 2 hours. You know, now that I know that, 2 hours and 5 minutes. And sometimes I have been thinking, how the fuck do they just come to these answers so quick? But then, of course, it's television. This is the first time I've really seen it's not just down to the numbers. It's really mostly the entrepreneur. Because I've seen some answers. I've seen, like, some of you guys give offers and then actually go, actually, no, I'm out now. Because they just talk too much then.
Yeah, and a lot of the reasons that you see why we were out, there is like a long monologue that happens to why we're out, but that doesn't necessarily make the best television, right? So they'll just cut it and you'll be like, I don't like you, I'm out. Whereas it's like, we really went through like, hey, your customer acquisition cost is too high, the LTV is too low, like your ROAS has been slipping on all of these channels. You've got this, and this problem, and you haven't told us about how you're going to be able to overcome that. And for all of those reasons, I'm out, right? Yeah. That is typically how it happens. But being television, it's just like, yeah, I didn't like that, I'm out.
Yeah. Well, that adds for good drama.
It does, yeah. It's television. It's all in the love of it.
So you were mentioning that like what you thought coming into it, that the economic factor and all that stuff in Australia is gonna be different. Have you? Because when I've been watching that show and then US Shark Tank and then Dragon's Den the UK, massive different. Have you seen that? I guess, and not all, like, so I'm not generalizing across all entrepreneurs because there's some amazing entrepreneurs here in Australia, but I guess the per capita, the quality of entrepreneurs come on this show versus US and in the UK. Have you seen a significant difference of just the way people here in Australia, I guess, think and approach entrepreneurship?
Yeah, because I'm a fan of the show, right? And I've been a fan of the show for many, many years before I was on the show. And I always saw like the UK, the Dragon's Den, is like they were definitely nowhere near as sophisticated as in the US, right? They didn't have the same business acumen. They weren't as aggressive. They didn't really know their numbers as much. And then in the US, what I've seen from season to season, like now it's like people come out and they're like, and we've got $10 million in sales. And you're like, what? Like there's just such, like as the years have progressed, have just gotten a more caliber of people that have got much more sales coming into it. The thing that I was really surprised with in the Australian market is just people's like resourcefulness, and like we had like so many businesses come on there that had literally grown to like 1 million or multiple millions, like just through TikTok alone, just through organic, right? Or if they were running ads, they were getting like very high return on ad spend, like an 8 and a 9 and a 10. And like they were just doing it themselves. And I thought that it would be more akin and more alike to like the UK, where it's like you get lots of businesses that, come on the Dragon's Den and they've got like £10,000 in sales. And it's like, a very half-baked idea, where a lot of the people that came in to the Shark Tank here in Australia, they had already mastered one channel, or they were already running ads, already doing quite a bit of scale, or they were doing organic, and they were just very resourceful. And I didn't think that, like, there's 2 million small businesses in Australia, there's 60 million in America. Like, you have a look at the difference in the numbers, right? But in terms of what was presented to us, like I was even speaking to Robert, the other shark, who's done the Canadian one, he's done the US one. And I was like, how does this differ? And he's like, I just can't get over like the caliber of entrepreneurs that we're seeing. He's like, I didn't think it would be this high in Australia.
They're bigger here?
It's not that they're bigger. It's just the quality of the businesses are just as high, if not higher,
right,
per capita.
That's what I was going to ask. So working with Robert, I think that would have been probably one of the coolest things as well on the show, to sort of sit with someone who's got, like, he's been in it since like...
He's been on it for 17 years.
Forever. Yeah. So, what were some of the biggest learnings you learned as an investor and a business owner working alongside him and seeing how he does deals, or even like you guys have all done deals together and stuff? What's been some of the biggest things you've learned working with him?
Yeah, he's definitely like a seasoned pro, right? And all of us sharks, we noticed that very early on, is that like when you get that many reps in, like you've been doing it for 17 years, you've been shooting it in two different geographies. It isn't his first rodeo, where it was all of our first rodeo, right? Like that was the first time for us, like to be on television in that format doing that thing. So I think that like the thing that I really observed from him is he's just incredible at like articulating like the problem and also seeing where that entrepreneur is on their journey and knowing what are the things that we as investors like. I thought about it in the beginning. I was like, hey, I want like a lot of these businesses that I can just add a lot of value to, right? I want to add a lot of value and then explode their business. And he's like, no, like you don't want to add a lot of value. You want to take a business that's already doing well and you just want to give it cash and help it grow. Because what you're going to realize is after doing this for multiple seasons, like you're not going to have time to be dealing with everybody one-on-one, and you're not going to have time to add a lot of value to anybody. Yes, you can add like strategic guidance, but you're really looking for a vehicle that you can give money, and that's the thing that's holding them back to get them to where it is that they want to where they want to be. And that was definitely a bit of a perspective shift for me because I haven't been doing it for 17 years. I don't have hundreds of businesses that I've invested in like him, and understanding that it's impossible to get to absolutely every single one of them. So realistically, you're looking for people that, yeah, you can make a few phone calls, you can help them with certain things, but it's more so the thing that they need also more than anything is the capital to help them grow.
Are you gonna go back on another season?
Yeah, I think that if we still don't know where we're at in terms of if there's going to be a season 2 or whatnot. It was definitely an incredible experience. Like the team that put it together is just absolutely awesome, and yeah, I'd definitely go on for season 2.
That's very cool. So, as the actually, before I talk about the internet daddy stuff, the process of actually doing a deal on Shark Tank, like, so you're saying, sir, it's about 2 hour-ish sort of pitch. When you're like, yes, we're done, what then happens behind the scenes that we don't see? Because TV just sort of makes it look like 5 minute pitch, done deal, here's my money, go.
Yep.
Which is not, obviously. So what's the process that comes next?
Yeah, then we go into due diligence. We obviously have to get their numbers. We have to verify everything that they said on the show is correct and that they did represent themselves completely fairly. And that's a process, right? Seeing if they said they had trademarks, looking at all the trademarks, any patents that they've got, and just verifying all the things that you made an offer off that. And that's the process. It can take months going back and forth. Accountants are involved, lawyers are involved, all of those kind of things. And you really need a team behind you in order to do that and to be able to make those deals and then do all the due diligence and follow up. I don't have the time to do that. So, obviously your team steps in, you have professionals that come in, then you go through all that process, and then if everything was as the way that it said it was, then the deal is done.
Yeah. So, as the internet daddy, you've worked with thousands of businesses. You crush it online. You're the marketing guy. Where do you see most people just completely fuck it up when it comes to advertising?
There's a lot, right? I think that most people get really concerned and they think about brand far too prematurely than they need to. Like most businesses that start out, they don't have a brand. They have a logo, right? And like brand is a byproduct of distribution. Like you have to have customers in order to have a brand. Otherwise it's just a logo, right? Like the brand by definition is like the relationship that people have with a company and the values that they assigned to that brand. And that's something that's not possible to do until you got customers. So the first rule, like when you're starting to advertise, is that you turn $1 into $2 or $3 or $5 or $10, right? And you really want to just pick one channel and master what it is that you need to do on that channel to do just that, to turn $1 into $2. And it's not to like, I remember when I got started out and you see all these big brands, and you're like Apple and Coca-Cola and stuff, and you're like, well, they're the biggest brands in the world, so surely I should just do what they're doing, right? Because they're the biggest in the world. But then it's like, it's not until you really look at those businesses and you don't look at where they are right now, but you look at what got them to that place. And you can find that like a lot of these businesses got their roots in direct response, right? Which is to put an ad out and to convert that intention into money by asking someone to take an action of what it is you do. Apple did it great in the B2B space, obviously calling people up, all of that kind of jazz. And same with Coca-Cola, right? Like they went door to door. And so if you only look at the end result and you look at what people did to get them there, you think that you just need to do branded advertising. When all reality, it's like when you're starting out, the thing that you need to master is how to put a sales message out, get people's attention, and then actually get them to do what it is that you're asking them. Whether that's to fill a contact form, to get a lead, to book a call, or to pull out their wallet and buy. And you don't want to focus on all of it. You don't want to be like, I need to be doing TikTok. I need to be doing YouTube ads. I need to be doing Google ads. I need to be running Facebook ads. I need to be doing Instagram videos. I need to be doing all of these different things, right? No, you just need to master one. You need to master one channel and you need to get it to work. And when I say get it to work, you need to learn copywriting, positioning, making offers to people to get that where it's like you buy the eyeballs and then you flip that eyeballs into money. And at the end of the day, there's still enough money left off to buy candy bars and comic books and pistachios and protein shakes or whatever it is that you want to do, right? And that's the game. That is the game in the beginning. And then you earn your right. If you're good enough at doing that, you earn the right to build a brand.
The branding comes as a byproduct of just killing it.
Yeah, like you can be more intentional about brand, like as you get bigger and as you can shift your time horizons, right? Because in the beginning, you need to be focusing on right now money because it's like there is no money. And like cash flow is what is the oxygen that fills the lungs of a business. And unless you have it coming in, then you don't have a business. You just have an expensive hobby that makes no money. And so that's the first problem that you're trying to solve, is to turn it into a business. And if you don't have a repeatable, predictable way to get customers, then you don't have a business. So that's the first thing that you need to nail. And then after you nail that and you're stacking cash in the bank, then you can start to think about like extending those time horizons 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years down the track. That's definitely where, a lot of the big money is made. But I see businesses look at all of the big brands in their space and what they're doing today, and they try to replicate that today, and they don't, and then they never get off the ground to begin with.
That makes a lot of sense because Coca-Cola spends, I think, like $2 billion a year just on branding. Because it's more so that is where they're at now, just brand placement. I haven't seen Coca-Cola, I think, ever do a direct response ad.
Yeah. And they don't need to at this stage, right? But it's like there is still like a parts of their business that are just so direct response that you don't see. So it's like, well, what is that? You might ask me, like, what is the direct response component of it, right? Where it's like, all right, we'll look at Coca-Cola Amatil in Australia, right? Like they go knock on doors and they go get their fridges installed into every cafe, every milk bar, every shop, and they make them an offer that they simply can't refuse by saying, I will give you the fridge for free. The only thing that you must do is stock only Coca-Cola drinks.
Wow.
And we'll give you all the water, the juices, the Goulburn Valley, the Sprite, the sparkling water, the mineral water, everything that you need. But you can't stock anybody else's stuff, right? And so that's the way they go out there and build the distribution, and then they build the demand through brand.
I never knew that. That's incredible. So they literally just playing the Monopoly now.
They do. Yeah. It's a lockout game. So that's why you can always see in certain niches of the market, it's either Pepsi or it's Coca-Cola that own those different turfs.
For agency owners, you've grown one of the biggest agency here in Australia. What's your best piece of advice for agency owners?
Obsessing over your craft. A lot of people, there's a lot of people on YouTube spruiking that social media marketing agencies are the best businesses to start, that agencies are great and that you should just do it. And if you just buy my $2,500 course, I'll teach you exactly how to do it. Come on in, learn how to do it in 6 weeks, and then go and start a profitable side hustle with the digital agency, right? There is 12,000 digital agencies, the last time I checked, in Australia. There are 80,000 in America. So the waters are bloody with competition. And most people are just completely dog shit at doing it because they've either watched YouTube videos or they've done a course and then they think that they are in a position to go out there and help businesses. And to their defense, if they have done a program and they've done it for a couple of months, they might know more than Bob or Sally, who runs, a small local business, right? But you're not competing in a silo with no one else for that client now. There's lots of other people, right, that you're competing with to get that person. And so most people are just constantly thinking about how do they make easy money. That's what no one wants to get rich. Everyone wants to be rich, right? They don't want to do the work that's required to get there. And so they would rather do a 6-week course and then start bringing on clients and figure it all out. But ultimately the market, is going to reward you from being able to solve that problem better than anyone else in the market. And the only way that you can do that is by focusing on your craft. And it doesn't matter what that craft is, right? The universe have already showed you, whether you're making sushi or you're a digital marketing agency or you're making cookies, you get rewarded for the amount of value and how well you can actually solve those problems for your marketplace. So I think that most of the focus, if you look at the digital agency space, is on customer acquisition. It's on getting leads, booking calls, making sales, which is all very true. Need all of those things, but none of it is focused on how do I provide an incredible experience for my clients? How do I get very, very good? How do I look at what those roadblocks are of what makes my clients not be successful and really try focusing on removing them to give your client that outcome as predictably as possible. And I think that there needs to be more of an emphasis on that and on product and on customer experience. Because what you find with a lot of digital agencies is that 95% of these guys are running it out of their bedroom in their pajamas, right? And then you look at their churn rates and how much they lose clients, they'll lose, they'll have a 95% churn rate, meaning that they lose 95% all of their clients in 12 months' time. So then they just get stuck on the hamster wheel of customer acquisition, and they never get good on the fulfillment side because they don't spend the time and energy that they need to.
Is that with an agency, what do you think is more important, customer acquisition or actually just retention?
It's not either or, it's both, right? But it's whoever makes the most from each client can afford to spend the most to get each client. So it's you want to think about, how do I make my clients more valuable to my business? And the answer to that is by retention. It's about delivering the outcome that you say that you're going to deliver to them, and look at all of the things because there's still situations where as a digital agency, you deliver your end of the bargain and then the client drops the ball. You deliver the leads, they can't close. You deliver the leads, they've got a receptionist calling an inbound cold lead that's come in from Facebook and are expecting these people just to rock up on the call with their credit card out ready to buy when they didn't even know who you were 5 days ago, right? So you have to understand that is going to be an element to it. But then thinking about yourself is that that's the laws of gravity. What else is it that you would be able to do to remove that friction point and to stack the deck in your client's favor to still have them be successful? But it's not if you just focus on retention, if you're not getting clients, you've got nothing to retain, right? And if you just focus on acquisition, but you're not retaining it, it's just going to be a leaky bucket.
Knowing everything you know now, if we were to take you back in your bedroom, starting your business from scratch, what would you do differently?
You know, I get this question a lot, and the reality of it is that, like, you know, I wouldn't do anything differently because everything that I have done has arrived me to where I am right now, and I'm very happy with where I am right now. I'm not content, but I'm happy, right? And like all of the lessons and learnings and all the scars and the mistakes and the errors that I made along the way, if I didn't make them, then I wouldn't be the person who I am today, right? And if it was those mistakes that I avoided, there would be other mistakes that I would have to make in order to build a character of somebody that can go through the things that I've had to go through to get where I am, right? And I don't know that if I avoided one problem and I experienced another one, where that trajectory would end me up and where I would add, right? And I know that there are many more mistakes that I'm still yet to make in my life. I know that there's still lots of limiting beliefs that I have that I hold sacred that are untrue, that are in my mind. And I know that my journey to overcome and solve those problems throughout the journey of my life will build me into the man that I'll ultimately be when I'm older in my life.
Would you still approach it with the 150 calls a day? Like, would that be like for the person watching this right now going, I want to start a company? And if they were to try and model you, would you still start today and go, I'm going to start dialing 150 people?
I think that you have to look at what your strengths are, right? My strengths were definitely like making sales calls, right? And doing cold calls because that's what I rely on. Like what I had to rely on when I had no money, because you either start with like financial capital or sweat equity, right? You've either got more time or you've got more money. I had way more time than I had more money. Would I do 150 cold calls? No, I would probably do, 1,000 cold outreaches through either cold email, Facebook groups, DMs, Loom videos, a whole bunch of different artillery that I would use with doing hand-to-hand combat and being out there in the wild trying to get clients. Would getting on the telephone still be a big part of that? 1,000%, right? Because if you're selling something that's high ticket, that involves you getting over the telephone. And it's just whatever is going to be the least friction to get set up. Like if it was like, okay, like I have to go get these email addresses, I have to find out who to email, I have to set up all the servers, I have to make sure that my IP reputation score is good, and that's going to take me all of this time to do it, and then I'm not going to be able to do it, then no, like I'm going to go to like, it's movement, not meditation, right? Because you've just got to get going in the beginning, and then you can start doing all of those things. But yeah, it's like ultimately if you boil business down, it's all about getting attention and then converting that attention into customers. So whether it's through paid ads or it's through organic YouTube or it's through cold calling or cold email, it all starts by collecting the raw inputs with somebody's attention, right? And the delivery vehicle of what you do to that, it doesn't really matter. Right? It just comes down to focusing on that one thing. Could I build a massive agency right now doing exactly what I did to start King Kong? 1,000%. Right? Could I do it through cold emailing people? 1,000%. Right? It's like they say, like the best CRM is the CRM that you're going to use.
Yeah.
The best workout program or diet is the one that you're going to follow.
That's the one you do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dude, this has been great. Super valuable. Where can everybody find you on social media?
Yep. Just, I will find them.
Yeah,
like,
you do.
I'll find them, but no. I'm pretty much Sabri Suby on every single platform, so check me out.
When they're probably halfway through watching this on YouTube, they've been hit with a couple of your ads.
I'm your guy.
I love it, man. Okay, so to wrap this up, final question. If you were to go back to your 18-year-old self and give him 30 seconds of advice, what would it be?
Again, it would be focus. I'd just be sitting down and just saying like, look, everything's going to be okay. Just find something, become world class in it. Don't question all the different perspectives and viewpoints that everybody has on something. And the way that you do anything is the way that you do everything. So the intensity that you approach the skill that you're trying to acquire, like understand that the way that you go after that and how you dedicate it and how you work yourself through problems, once you work through this problem and this problem that you're trying to solve, there is going to be the next level, the next final lotion boss that you're going to need to slay. There is going to be rivers that you need to cross, mountains that you need to climb, and it will never get easier. You will just get better. So you just let the work that you're doing create the individual that you know has the confidence to solve all of these problems. And whatever foray that you enter into, and whether you're a beginner in that foray, and there'll be multiple of them in your life, it doesn't matter, because you have the tenacity, grit to just go after it and to find those solutions. And anybody that you ever look up to and admire were always a beginner at one stage. And it was the way that they just went through that process to get to the outcome. And you're no different. If anything, you're even more special. So just go after and get after it.